Alright, so today I'm going to be doing a review and comparison between the Craftsman brushless RP router and the cordless Dewalt brushless router. So the Dewalt I got for Christmas this past year, so I didn't pay for that one, but that one was a Christmas gift. The Craftsman came out just after Christmas, and I bought this one with my own money, so these are going to be 100% my own opinion on these two. Yes, these are both Stanley Black Decker made tools, but they're two different lines and two different manufacturers, we'll say. You can definitely tell that they are not made in the same factory. They have two very different looks, but apart from that, Stanley Black Decker owns Dewalt and Craftsman. So we're going to get into it, and here we go. First, you can see this is what comes with the Dewalt. You get the router, the manual, and the wrench. That's all you get in the box, and that's I believe at the beginning of this video I looked it up, and it's $229 over at Lowe's. In the Craftsman box, you get the router, the manual, the wrench, the attachment for dust collection, and an edge guide. Interesting thing to note, because these are both made by Stanley Black Decker, this edge guide will work on the Dewalt. So if you have them both, you get one for both, but I don't think everybody's going to be doing that. So first off, a big obvious difference is clearly the height adjust and how it's made. The base for this one is smaller. It also does have a work light. It sits up in there. It's an LED. An interesting thing to note about the base, let's see if I can get it here on camera. As you can see, there's an arrow for spin direction. Very nice for trying to figure out the direction to run wood through this. I know I always have to sit there and think about it before running anything. So how the main adjust works is you flip this open. This right here allows it to go up and down. Basically how it works. So there's threads in there, and it runs up and down this screw, which turns this. Interesting design. We'll see how it holds over the coming years. So you can also have these adjustments right here that spin it up or down. That way you can actually measure for your micro adjust. But you can also push this clip and it gets further adjust. So an interesting thing to note is that this has 1 7/16 of an inch working height. That's the difference you have between the lowest possible setting and the highest possible setting. The Dewalt, on the other hand, has 2 solid inches of work height. One thing I'm going to note is, so right here, you can actually see these are just little rubber pieces, and they come out pretty easily. You know, all my other cordless Craftsman stuff does not have any of this. I'm not sure exactly why they put it in there, but the best I can figure is better grip for the battery. I like how it clicks into place, but you also, the battery's not just gonna fall right on out of there. However, if you look, there's none of those little rubber tabs, so the battery can, you know, falls out. I'm not holding on to that at all, but nice little click into place. So the Dewalt, this one also has a slower speed rating. The Craftsman says it has 16,000 RPMs up to 30,000 RPMs versus the Dewalt has 16,000 RPMs up to 25,500 RPMs is what they're claiming. So for the Dewalt, the bigger base, no directional arrow. This one also does have 2 LED work lights. For operating your height, this closes down on that. You can do micro adjust using this. You'll have to read your user manual, or I might do a later little clip on how to use the micro adjust. But this is your micro adjust. You can see some writing, some notes there. But otherwise, so if you want to do big movements as far as big adjustments, you can do big adjustments like that and lock this down, and it's not going anywhere while this hangs freely. But not sure how I feel about that. Might be a little tedious as far as working with that. They both do have adjustments for speed. The 1 to 7 is the setting for both of them. One thing I do like on the Craftsman, however, is the on switch is on the front on the Craftsman versus the Dewalt is on the side. So if you, depending on which way you're routing, you kind of have to think about where it's sitting. Versus on the Craftsman, it's always on the front. So that is the slight overview of both of these. We're going to go ahead and put some bits in it. I'm going to put a 1/2-inch bit in this, and I'm going to do some edges. I'm going to do some roundovers. Going to try and work them a little on the hard side as far as I go. I'm usually pretty easy on my tools, but we'll actually do some sawdust making here. I'm going to put this on and see how that works. I'm going to do with and without that. Because the Dewalt didn't come with one, it's just going to be a mess everywhere. So man glitter for the win. So this is a pressure treated 4x4. I just have a 1/2-inch straight cutting bit. I put the edge guide on. I'm just going to go ahead and cut one little bit. I'm going to do another one with the dust collector on. That way I can see the difference between with and without it on. Don't know if you guys could hear that, but as I was using it, the bass had a little ringing to the end. Alright, that makes a mess. A little bit of cleanup. Okay, so my main dust collection system is a rigid shop vac and a dust separator, so I'm going to use my little Craftsman shop vac for this. I did read that the cordless V20 Craftsman shop vac does hook up to this, so a nice little bit of information in case anybody has that tool out there. So one thing I will show you guys. So in here, you can see it right there, there's a little tab, and that's supposed to go in there. And then there's a screw, you can see it sitting right there. Goes in this side through that spot. So I watched a video where a guy went to put this on and he didn't have this little tab in there. So you got to be mindful of that. And you got to make sure it clips on in there. That way it doesn't cause a gap. You can't see that, but battery's out. That way I'm not putting this in here while the battery's plugged in. That wouldn't be too safe. clean than the first round. A little bit came out there when you're first starting, but that's not surprising. About the same as what it looks like from the first one. A thing to note, when you're going over this open area right here, the router can tip inward, same when starting. So that's something to take into account. A nice thing to do, and they put these, you can put a piece across there, that way you don't have that opening. Some of the nicer guides have that to where you can close these two gaps. That way you don't have to worry about it tilting or anything while trying to start a straight line cut. Otherwise that can mess up a lot of things, saying if you're trying to put in T-track or something like that, you need a nice straight cut, which an edge guide helps with, but you don't want any of that teetering. So I'm going to go ahead and swap over, because it fits, I'm going to swap over this edge guide into the Dewalt. Let's move this around. And cut a couple more lines of wood, couple of lines of wood. So as I'm setting this Dewalt up, there is one thing I do notice, and I do actually like. So the Dewalt here, doing the micro adjust, yeah, it's a lot different. However, you have a lot more adjustment you can make. So one full rotation is almost half an inch worth of depth. Versus on the Craftsman, you only get a 32nd of a rotation before the numbers start over again. So you have to do a little bit of math in your head to find out if you're cutting, you know, a quarter, an eighth, 3/8. You gotta determine that a little bit. It's a little harder to determine on the Craftsman. But to make sure I'm doing the same amount here, I want to make sure I'm cutting the same depth. So I was cutting, what did I say, 3/8 over there. So there's 1/16, 1/8, 3/16. So there's about 3/8. 3/8 of a depth. So we'll see what this one looks like. Now this one doesn't have any dust collection, so it's gonna get messy. Now you can't see me, but I do have eyes and hearing protection in. We're gonna put these both on the same setting. Craftsman was on speed setting 7, and we will see what this is like. Yep, just as big a mess as the Craftsman. Alright, so here are my final thoughts. You know, they're two good tools. You get $230 versus $100. You get only the tool and the wrench versus this one you get an edge guide and a dust collection. But you can definitely tell, I mean, this one's heavier, bigger, beefier, harder components to it. Probably going to last a lot longer. But probably the two main deciding factors for you are going to be, are you a weekend warrior such as me? I go out into my shop and build mainly things for myself around the house. Or is this tool going to make you money in the long run? If it's going to make you money, you're probably going to want something that's going to stick around, be a lot tougher, and is just going to work longer. You know, even though this is two Stanley Black Decker tools, there's very, very big differences between them. So it's ultimately going to be, what's your end goal? What can your wallet take? Yeah, the $130 difference in price here is going to be probably the big deciding factor. I'm in the Craftsman line. You know, I got a whole wall of tools over here you can't see and a dozen batteries versus this is my only Dewalt tool. I like Dewalt. There's nothing wrong with them. My dad has Dewalt tools, but this is my only one. So I'm definitely going to keep them both. Probably build a router table for this one at some point. Another interesting note is DeWalt does make one. I think it's about the same size as a corded version of this one. I believe that can fit into a CNC machine. I don't know if you ever plan on getting into something like that, but I wouldn't put a battery powered version, even if it fits, in a CNC machine. It would be terrible to have the battery run out as that tool is running or cause some other issue. You could either break a bit or, you know, bend the shaft inside the motor. That would be a costly mistake. But yeah, those are my thoughts. A quick little overview between the two tools. You know, you got weekend guy, makes a living. So from there, that's going to be your pick. But hopefully this review was helpful. Hopefully the video quality and everything else wasn't that bad, as this is my first video. But we'll see where it takes me, if this is going to be my one and only video, or if you guys have questions about other things, let me know. We'll see what turns out. Take care.